Welcome to the Innerscape podcast.
Hi, Tina.
Hi, Judith, and hello to all of our listeners and viewers as well. We brought you a topic of a pretty controversial emotion, which is anger. There's many different reasons why we might feel angry. Maybe we've been treated unfairly by others, or our anger might be a reaction to difficult experiences that we face daily, or something that happened in our past. But actually, anger is a healthy emotion, like all of our emotions. And I think anger has this bad reputation because of the violence and aggression that is the outcome of anger. So why is it that we experience it as something negative? And on the other hand, why is it such a strong feeling, and why are we so controlled by this one emotion compared to the other emotions that we have? Judith, what are your thoughts on anger? You look so happy.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure you're not in this angry moment.
No, I'm super nervous. I feel I've been put in the spotlight because this is such a complex topic, and I don't know how much time you have, or you guys, in front of the screen or on your headphones. But what was the question again? Sorry.
I know it's really a complex topic. It's hard to start, but like in general, what are your thoughts on anger? Do you experience it as an overwhelming feeling, or something that controls your life?
Well, it definitely grabbed my attention when you said that it's an emotion we try to control, or is it negative or positive, or how we label it. And I think there's a difference between feeling angry and expressing it. Because as an emotion, I believe that when we were children, we were told to behave, to suppress it, not to act on this emotion, as well as because our parents were godlike figures, we also didn't feel validated to express anger or even feel anger towards them. So I think that is one side. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. This is such a huge, you basically, you introduce such a complexity of this whole question. I don't even know where to start, but
I think we can go from this side, like bringing some examples when do we feel angry, or what's triggering this anger.
Okay. I usually get angry when I experience injustice, when I catch someone lying, or when I feel to be betrayed, or to be taken advantage of me, or to be fooled. So these situations usually make me angry. But even in this situation, I'm not angry with the other person, and I think it's a very important point in understanding anger, because when we experience this, everything I listed, we're not actually angry with the person who did this to us. We are angry with ourselves, because as grown-ups, it is our responsibility to set our boundaries and protect ourselves. And we are angry with ourselves because we let ourselves to be fooled and lied to. Like just ask that when, for example, you walk into a coffee shop and you pay a ridiculous £4 for a flat white, and you get a really, really bad coffee made with zero care, and you accept it, and then you walk out furious, then you're not angry with the barista, you're angry with yourself, because you could have said, can you please make me another one, because this doesn't taste any good, or this doesn't look good. And in many similar situations, even when someone lies to us or someone tries to trick us, it is our responsibility to speak up and say our truth and our just to be faithful to our principles and defend our dignity. So this is the first point of anger. I don't know what you think about this.
For sure, when we point our anger towards others, when we actually angry of ourselves, that is something not cool. I mean, I think it's now it's considered. I mean, scientifically, letting out anger is healthy. It's considered healthy because it's just an emotion as our other emotions. But I think when we lash out on others, then it's going to create this type of circle, this ripple effect that, you point your anger towards someone and then they're going to also become angry because they feel that they were treated unfairly, as you would feel when you are treated unfairly, and so on. You're going to continue this. But I think letting out anger is important, because if you stuff it, if you store it inside you, then it's poisoning you. We've been told that letting out anger is not okay because it's a huge emotion. It looks bad on everyone, and how we learned it is that it's something negative, so you should not let it out. But until you don't let it out on someone else, but on something, like you can direct it, I think you can direct your anger towards something, then I think it's important to let it out somehow. And there are techniques as well how to manage your anger, because it should be a normal emotion as well, like every other emotion.
Do you mean techniques on how to manage anger or how to let out anger?
I think both. Because in our society we don't really learn it, how to manage our normal level of anger. So it becomes big. So now we have to manage the chronic anger, basically. So when you burst out and you're not able to control yourself and you're constantly angry, and it comes often to you that you're angry, I think that's when you have a problem with it. But when you get angry, when you feel anger, I think it's completely normal. Like everyone feels angry sometimes.
Yeah, I just wonder if this lashing out or even expressing anger can be prevented with efficient communication in such situations that I just said earlier. For example, when you feel that, I don't know, someone stands in front of you in the queue, for example, then before you would get angry, if you can communicate your principles and you can communicate what you want, then this whole lashing out can be prevented.
Yeah, so you mean like with the flat white, that basically you became angry, but because you had a good communication and realized that this is not about the flat white or this person, but more inside you, something is triggered, then you're able to manage it in a normal way. So you try to communicate your needs. I think that's when you're like having a normal anger inside you. Then you basically treat it with communication. What I want to also talk about in this episode is where is this coming from? This anger. Why are we so triggered by things that we think is unfair, and we feel anger? So how does it start even inside us? Because I've been doing a few researches, and I've been also listening to scientists talking about anger, and it was always the source was always something else, because what psychologists also are saying, that anger is this cover emotion, and it is hiding something. And this something is normally fear, and the underlying emotion of fear is sadness. So ultimately, sadness is what's controlling us when we feel anger. And it's really interesting, I think, because, you know, so many times when we react, you wouldn't even think, because you're straight connected to the person in front of you, or the, even if you kick a table and you're becoming angry, you're just like feeling hopeless and feeling that like such a loser, and you direct it towards this object. But I think most likely we direct it towards our loved ones. And yeah, I think it's important to manage our anger and find the source of it first of all, because the only way we can manage it, and we can handle ourselves in these situations, in these angry moments, is if we know the source of it, so we can work on that and kind of let it go. So did you have any example in your life when you were like lashing out, and then and you noticed, and it was a teachable moment for you?
Yes. In fact, I did have anger issues in the past, and I had actual therapy for this, and I learned the exact same thing what you just mentioned, that anger is often a substitute. We cover much more difficult feelings with anger, exactly what you just said. Other feelings that can be more painful to feel, such as grief, sadness, and helplessness. And yeah, this is something else. When you, in the beginning, when you asked me what makes me angry, the other thing, the other situations where I feel anger is when I feel helpless, where I feel that I don't have the tool set, I don't have the control over a situation, and I don't know what to do. And I think this is an awfully paralyzing event. And we often, because we don't know how to handle something, we express it in as anger. So this is definitely a source, and I think everyone could dig deep and have a thorough think about when they feel angry, what they really feel beneath anger. And there's something I'd like to bring in, which I think is very, very important to mention before we talk about any kind of anger issues, and we label anyone with high temper or bad temper or whatever we call people. And maybe in the future we could have an expert guest who can help us with this, with unfolding these topics, because many times the reasons behind anger issues are quite serious. It can be abuse, trauma, depression, irritability, even OCD, ODD, bipolar disorder, mental health problems, gut health, irritation, pain in body, sleep deprivation. So there's so many things. Just imagine someone who hasn't slept for weeks or months or even years, or has, for example, gastritis, a very serious gut issue. If someone has a constant pain in their body, there are several Netflix documentaries and books released on this topic, that the gut and the brain is connected. And if you have bad bacteria, or if you have digestion problems, or any kind of just an unhealthy gut, then it affects your mood, your emotions, and your entire life. So
Yeah.
So yeah, this is something that I don't feel qualified to talk about because we're not trained psychotherapists, so we couldn't delve into this deeply. So this is this is a really complex roots of problems.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just smiling because it's crazy how our mood is even if I'm like hungry, my mood is completely changing, and you know
Yeah,
it's not normal that it's changing, but you know this hangriness, what we call
hungry.
now,
Yeah,
like when you're angry and hungry, and even this small thing is controlling your anger. So I cannot imagine when someone is in pain for a long time, how it can
yeah,
affect, and then your anger becomes also your personality in a way, because it's so frequent then that you think that it's you. But then I also had a friend who had like chronic pain, and then when this pain disappeared, she completely changed, like the
yeah.
personality
Of course.
changed. And it's incredible that anger is so strong, this emotion is really strong. And what you say is that covering fear and sadness and grief. And I think until we don't kind of dig into it, what's the source, we just identify it with it after a while, because we don't really know how to manage. We just stuck on this level that, okay, I'm angry and I don't know what to do with it. I'm just feeling angry and I don't know where is this coming from. I just had this the other day that I was super angry about something because I was not happy with myself, how I'm dealing with my time, and I was not respecting what I promised to myself. I was not respecting it, but it came out in a way that nothing was working out that day, and I was so pissed. And whatever JC, my partner, was like telling me, it was like, you know, I was just aiming it towards him, like, everything is shit, nothing works. And poor him had to suffer it. And I'm sure many of us are doing this to our spouses and partners. But yeah, it's good to realize that it's about you. It's about something else than just feeling shit. You always have to dig a little bit deeper to understand. Because as soon as I understood, we were talking about it, because now I'm like, I'm not, I straight recognize it, because I did a lot of techniques also against anger. I had a lot of anger inside me. Because, you know, I also come from an intense family and that's how we expressed ourselves. But I had to manage it, to not point it towards others, because it's not fair. It's not correct to do that. Like, if you're angry, no problem. Don't feel guilty, but point it towards a pillow or something, a
Yeah,
punching bag. You know, like,
yeah,
do it with intention. Say, okay, I'm fucking angry about this, and then do it with intention, but not like never towards someone, even if you're right. Because many times I felt like, but I justified why I can be angry of a person because I was right of what he or she was doing against me. But even then, it's never about them or what they did. It's always about
yeah,
me, because I have the
yeah.
choice to react in a different way if I'm not angry.
Yes, and what you said about families, that you didn't learn to understand and manage your emotions, very few people do. And it's because our parents didn't learn it either. So this is a chain that we can obviously learn, improve, and change it.
Yeah.
But it's hard work. And we learn at a very young age, we learn to suppress our feelings. And then when it becomes too much, like a Watergate, then it spills out. This is when we act out. This is when we lash out, and
Yeah.
we have this outbursts of anger, and this is unhealthy. Feeling it's okay.
Yeah.
And for example, I learned of myself, because also everyone is very different. I'm a kind of person who I have big temper, so I need to release it, but in that single second it's gone, and 5 minutes later I'm fine. But if I don't express it, and maybe for some people who have different background, different culture, or socialized somewhere else, I experienced it in the UK, for example. Then for some people, they might think there's something serious going on, but with me, but it's not the case.
Yeah.
But it's much better for me. I used to keep it down, and I pressed it down, 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 and then later on, it has grown into a really big issue. But now I let it out immediately, and I move on. And of course, being careful that I don't hurt anyone.
Yeah.
It's just something in me. And what you said about the pillows, this is a very good technique. Lots of therapists recommend boxing or just hitting something. If it's in you, it has to come out. Otherwise, later on, it can turn into something more serious. And this is one thing when you lash out on others, your partner or whoever is right next to you, or if you try to keep it down and you don't find a way. And of course, we can bring in anger management here, because you can, for example, exercise helps a lot to release all that built up tension, or cognitive behavior therapy, or relaxation techniques. There are many, many techniques to just keep it at bay, your mental health and balance. But if you're angry because of something, and if you don't let it out on someone else or on your pillow, then unfortunately this is when self-harm comes into the picture. This is also a very sensitive subject to bring in. But if you can't manage this anger, it can unfortunately turn against you. And many people experience self-harm and suffer from it. And this is why I'm so careful with this topic, because I don't think it's publicly spoken about often. I think it's still a taboo. And I don't know, what do you think about this?
I mean, I think now more and more people are talking about it openly and opening up about their own experiences as well. We can approach it from so many different angles, and we might also need a professional to elaborate on these things. But even if we don't go to self-harm itself, but the effect of suppressing it, it's still important to mention that when we stuff in anger and we don't express it, then it can still harm us in invisible ways, like cancer, for example. I've read this article on wellnessspace.net that there is evidence to show that suppressed anger can be a precursor to development of cancer and also a factor in its progression. Cancer is such a global issue. Just to go into a little bit into this scientific part, how anger is controlling our body. I want to read a little part of this article that anger also causes the release of the stress hormone cortisol. The release of this hormone gives the body bursts of energy. However, too much of this hormone can cause a multitude of negative effects on the body. Too much cortisol in the body can cause an imbalance in blood sugar. It can suppress thyroid functions and decrease bone density. This hormonal imbalance also impacts the body's immune system, and research shows that chronic angry people suffer more frequent colds, flus infections, asthma, skin disease flare-ups, and arthritis as compared to non-chronic angry people. This is interesting, no? How our body is completely affected by our emotions. And I don't think that we can separate these two anymore. Like, our mind and our body health is completely connected. And I think still in medicine, they're separating the body from the mind and from our emotions. But all these emotions and our way of thinking is affecting our body on a really huge scale. So
yeah, definitely. No, definitely not Western medicine. And feeling anger contributes to higher stress level and contributes to diseases, as you read about it. What really intrigues me here is that if we can clear out any medical condition, OCD, ODD, bipolar disorder, everything I said, or chronic pain, and if you don't have any of these, so you're not suffering from trauma, but just on a daily level, little things make you angry, my question here is, how can you prevent that? For example, let's talk about people pleasers. If you can't say no, and you say yes to your boss or to your flatmates or to your neighbor for everything, every little thing that maybe you don't agree with or it doesn't align with how you would do things, then you can become angry. I know people, I don't want to bring in names, but I know people who would never say it to the other person, but then later on they complain to me because they didn't express their truth to them. So I think I'm going back to efficient communication here. It's not a coincidence that they say that the core of every thriving relationship, even if it's a colleague or a partner or a parent or a friend, is communication. But it's much harder than we think. It's much, much, much harder to communicate well and with understanding and with compassion and with listening to the other party. And there's another thing that I have learned about myself quite recently, that you know about the fight or flight response, right? So the fight or flight response is an automatic psychological reaction to an event that is perceived as stressful or frightening. And there are three possible reactions. You either fight back, attack, freeze, or run away. And if you don't learn your pattern, all three can make you angry and can cause unnecessary anger and stress in your life. For example, if you straight attack back, then that's not going to resolve any problem, because then the other party will defend themselves and it will build into a fight. But if you freeze or run away, then later on you will be angry with yourself that you didn't stand up for yourself when you could have, or you could have said something. So, for example, for people who are the freezer types, like I am, what I suggest is say, I can't react to this now, but I will come back to you in a day time. It really works for me because in the past I didn't know in the exact moment, I didn't know what to say, and then later on I blamed myself for not saying the right things.
Yeah.
But if you ask for time, and it's the same type, if you're, for example, someone who fights back, then a good technique is that you move away, you physically move yourself from a situation that you can't handle. You can say, just 1 minute, and you go to the other room. You diffuse, you can't, and then you come back with a cooler head, and then maybe you can, probably you can communicate better.
Yeah, I think that's why it's important to realize which one are you also in the moment, because I don't know if you were pointing at me because but I'm definitely the fighter. Like I straight fight back if I feel that I'm attacked in any way, then I fight back because that's my way of responding. So my technique was definitely to leave the room, and people said that, like I said, I have to go. And then people were considering that it's rude, but I was saving them from me, basically, because I didn't want to hurt them. And then I knew it's not about them, but I didn't know how to handle my temper at that moment.
It's not even about losing temper. This is why the official definition is it's an automatic psychological response. It happens before we could realize what's happening.
Yeah.
But learning about ourselves, this is the most important lesson and the biggest journey of our life. Learning all these, and and no end.
But I can say an end on it.
Say an end.
Again, going back to the source of it, I was reading, and also I was listening to a counselor or a YouTuber, Kenny Weiss. He's talking about the 7 steps of anger management, and he was saying so great things about anger management, but he was always going back to the source. Like basically, it doesn't matter what you're angry about, because there's always this underlying fear or sadness that is controlling you. And first, of course, it's important to be conscious. Like if you're just experiencing anger and you don't even try to understand it, you're never going to resolve this issue. So you really have to ask yourself, like, what is this connected to in my past? Like, it can be a week ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when you were 7 years old, and try to go back to the source. When was the first time when you felt this anger? Like the next time when you have a situation, when you're angry, then try to ask this from yourself, that, this feeling is, where is this first in my body? Where do I feel it? In my throat, in my stomach? This can help you also to guide you to identify. So identify where you feel it. Then you ask yourself, when was the last time when I felt this? When was the first time when I felt this type of anger? What was triggering it? And so many times, the basic trigger for all of us is rejection, powerlessness, inadequacy. And these are the things that we feel ashamed of, that we are not able to do something, we are not skilled enough, we don't know how to, and that's why we start to develop this feeling of anger, because we don't know how to manage those powerless moments, or this powerless feeling. So we react from anger because we feel, as you said, hopeless. And I think it's really interesting to look at it in this way, that even when someone else is angry on you, it's never about you. It's about them, always. So, but when I'm angry, it's always inside me, because I can be right about something, but still this thing that happened to me in the past is triggering. It repeats itself inside me because I never resolved that issue. And it can be something so simple that, for example, a teacher was telling you that you're stupid, or your mother was saying to you that, you don't know how to do this properly. And just this moment, like, like for 7 years old, it creates something. And maybe our parents, they don't mean to hurt us, but it still creates this kind of trauma.
Yeah.
And then we carry this on because we never resolve it, which is just gonna stuck in our head. And then we keep repeating it, and then it comes out in situations like when we feel that, I'm not sure I'm treated well, and I don't know how to react on this properly. I don't know how to communicate it, so I get angry, and then we just keep doing that.
Yeah.
So I think when you go back to the source, then you have a bigger picture of it, and then you can start to work on it later on to resolve.
Yeah, well, I think that in the heat of the moment, when you're fuming, it's really, really hard to think clearly and to be conscious. Anger it creates clouds in your head and eyes. So I think that if you experience someone that's close to you having a moment, then you can say, whoa, what's happening? Okay, calm down, stop and look at me, or just something, bring them out of that state, and then try to talk sense into them, but like with love and compassion. And it only works with people who are very close to you.
Yeah.
But what I see here is there's a short term and a long term solution, because in the short term, when you can't handle, you can say you take a break, or you go out running, you release this, or in the short term you can try to use I statements when you communicate with someone. Instead of saying, I think you're an idiot, or you're doing it wrong, you can say, I feel, or for me it feels like, or I sense that. So don't attack the other person. And this is the short. And in the long term, then you can analyze, because it's not going to happen in a fortnight. When you start to go back, I really liked what you said about bringing up examples from our memory, from the history, what events repeat themselves, what's happening, when we felt the same thing, and finding the roots can take a very long time, but therapy can help, and you can find, and yes, many times it goes back to childhood, when you felt humiliated or rejected or abandoned, but it can take a very long time. There is something else I wanted to bring in, unless you want to add something to this, what I just said.
I just remember this because you mentioned the fumes, and these clouds, and I just wanted to bring in a recommendation, a movie recommendation of, I don't know if you've seen Inside Out, this Pixar movie or something like that. And it's
Pixar, I think.
It's so incredibly picturing our anger, this little red figure with the fumes when the person gets angry. So basically inside the person you have the basic emotions: anger, fear, sadness, happiness, and the fifth one. And then they represent these emotions so well. And there's this really angry person, red. It's hilarious. I love this show. We're gonna link this as well in our description. But yeah, so what was your thought?
So yeah, I just finished an incredible book. I don't know if you heard about it. It's called Tuesdays with Maury.
No.
I will attach the link in the description among the other links regarding the medical conditions we talked about, or maybe the articles that you quoted from. But in this book, it's a non-fiction book, and an old college student who is now a journalist visits his dying sociology professor, and the professor gives him a last set of life lessons, and he collects them in this book. And at the very, very last chapter, they talk about forgiving. And I don't know what you think, if forgiving is possible or only forgetting exists. In this book, Mori, the main character, says at the end that forgive yourself and others. There is no point in keeping vengeance or stubbornness, pride, and vanity. And most importantly, forgive yourself for things that you didn't do or what you should have done. And when we talk about anger, I think there's a lot of self-blame comes in. And we tend to spiral on things, how and what we should have done. And forgiveness, what do you think about forgiveness?
I think it's hard to forgive others when we haven't forgiven to ourselves first. So I think I would first work on myself, how to forgive myself, because when I feel angry, I feel that I'm again like angry of someone else, but in truth, I'm angry of myself for not being who I want to be, or not, standing up for myself, as you mentioned. And I think it's important to first forgive ourselves, and then after it's easier to kind of let go of our anger, or even to forgive to someone who hurt us. Because as I was also mentioning, that this anger is the underlying fear and sadness, and many cases it was caused by our caregivers, or like someone in our past who we trusted. And in this moment when we felt this hurt, when we felt inadequate and powerless, we felt this shame that we are not capable of doing something. And we lost this trust in them, and we lost this sense of safety because of their response to us, or no response at all. It depends. So I think there is an importance of forgiveness in the matter of anger, and how to treat or handle anger.
Yeah.
And I just really believe that it starts again with us, how to forgive ourselves, not to blame anyone, because they also didn't know any better how to, like parenting is super hard. Like even if you do the best for your child, you never know what you can cause in them, and they are not to blame for it. But also we cannot blame ourselves to not be better. Like, I know that I was so angry with myself because I was angry, and I was expressing it towards other people, and I was punishing myself. Like, why do I do this? I don't understand. And I was blaming myself, and it's a circle. You're making it worse and worse. So yeah, I would definitely start with forgiving yourself first, because you're also not. Nobody's a bad person. You just never learned how to handle your emotions, and then after it's easier to forgive others, I think.
It's interesting, because for me, I can almost immediately forgive others when I sense that they truly resent what they did. And also it depends, because some deeds are done with malicious intention. Other ones are just mistakes or innocent hurts.
Yeah.
So when I see in the other person that they truly, truly feel sorry, then I can't hold grudges.
Yeah,
I really
feel
can't.
this.
I don't, and I want peace. I want to connect to people. So I never liked holding grudges. But of course, when I feel the lack of effort to resolve an issue, then it stays in me as well. But on the other hand, what you said about forgiving ourselves, I find it much more difficult. Of course, when you're a child, the only thing you can do thinking back is embrace that child and give yourself the self-love, because that child they didn't have the tool set to defend themselves or to do any better. And also, even if you regret something you did, or you're angry with yourself for something you did 10 years ago, at that very point, with that knowledge you had 10 years ago, you probably did the best, because we always want to do the best, right? So when 10-15 years ago I made a mistake, then at that point, as my dad would always say, that time it seemed like a good idea, but it doesn't seem like a good idea anymore, because you're a different person. And I don't know what's the secret of forgiving ourselves in the long term, but I think it has to start with being kind to ourselves and being as kind as we would be with our friends. Try to treat ourselves the same way as we would our best friend. And I'm sorry for the clap.
It's just making a statement as well.
Making a statement, yes. The judge confirms. So how do you say it? The judge brings verdict.
Yeah, exactly.
My neighbor is building furniture outside, so
I mean, if our listener is not gonna get angry from all this noise, then I think they're doing just fine.
This is a
test. Yeah. You're welcome, guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thanks to everyone who has listened to us today. It was definitely a more difficult and serious topic than the previous few. I really hope that we provoked some new thoughts. Maybe after this episode, some of you will improve even the regularity of your anger lash outs, or just understand a little bit better this emotion, which is very natural, and when it's managed, it can help you to feel more power and control over your life, and you're never angry for no reason. This is why you have to dig really deep into the sources. And if you don't find anything, then maybe you're just tired or hungry or have a medical condition you're unaware of, or sometimes you're just sad. But it's very weak to feel sad, so we cover it with anger. I think many men would say it's more masculine to fight than to cry, and it's the same source. So yes, good luck with this. If you feel, send us an email or a message on Instagram if you have any thought you would like to share with us, or any question after this episode. We would be really, really happy to receive your messages. So thank you once again, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Bye!
Hey guys, sorry for my sudden disappearance at the end of the session. I know you were missing me a lot, but turns out the platform decided to play favorites and only recorded you did. So my final thoughts of wisdom got lost, but no worries, it was not that important. I just wanted to thank you as well for tuning in and sticking with us even through technical glitches. See you next time, same place, hopefully with less drama and anger. Bye!
If you like this episode, please leave a review, share your thoughts in a comment, and spread the word of our podcast so it can reach many who might need to hear it.
Don't forget to follow us on Spotify and leave us a 5-star rate if you're happy with our podcast, and or Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content and discussions.